MVSS News. I'm Matthew Van Horn.
And I'm Samantha Snell.
Over the past few years, there have been many surveys and reports issued that claim that U.S. citizen political participation rates and sense of political efficacy are on the downswing. In a representative republic like the United States, this is an especially concerning issue, considering that you need political participation from the citizens in order to have the government create public policy. In a recent Gallup poll, 71% of citizens reported that they are unhappy with the current way the government is operated. This doesn't really make sense, considering that if the citizens didn't like how the government is operated, the numbers would say there should be more political participation from them.
In order to check this data, we conducted our own survey with Holt High School students to gauge their political participation and efficacy. According to our survey of 95 students, 75% claimed they were not politically active in any way, shape, or form. On top of that, 44% reported that they were not happy with how the government was handling its business. This could be dismissed as cynical behavior on their part for not believing that they could affect government if they participated, but 56% reported that they did believe that they could affect government if they participated.
Our data does indeed match up with the claims that U.S. political participation rates are on the downswing. This paints an unsatisfactory image of the U.S. citizen body. It paints an image of a citizen body that doesn't like how the government is operating, thinks that they can change things if they wanted to, but just doesn't.
In order to get a different view on the situation, we sent Matthew to interview community leaders and government representatives at a Lansing Lakes meeting to take their opinion on citizen participation.
Okay, so how long have you been working around in your community to help organize projects?
I moved into my neighborhood about 12 years ago, and I started getting involved kind of on the sidelines of organizing stuff about 10 years ago probably, and then 6 years ago or so I've been more in a leadership role.
Is there any particular reason that prompted you to move into this leadership role?
It was sort of a power vacuum at the time, so someone needed to step up, and I had the energy to do it. So.
How do you feel the participation rates among your community are in projects that you try to start?
Our community is super kind of unusually closely knit, so we sort of joke that when one of us comes up with an idea, we'll all just sort of follow them off the cliff. So it's super involved at almost any capacity. Whatever the idea is, usually people get behind it and make it happen.
Do you feel that they could do more to involve, or are you happy with the current participation rates?
I'm pretty happy when it comes to our immediate neighborhood.
Well, thank you for introducing yourself.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sure. My name's Katie, and I'm from the Place neighborhood.
And I'm Jenny, and I'm also from the Place neighborhood.
All right. So, how long have you both lived in your respective areas before you started getting involved in leadership roles or organization?
I've lived in the same 8 blocks for the last 8 years. I think I lived, maybe 2 or 3 years before I started volunteering at the greenhouse. And from there I started volunteering at the neighborhood center. And from then I got involved in my specific neighborhood group. So I guess I sort of started big and got more focused. And I think this is my 3rd year as a neighborhood leader within our group, so that's me.
And for me, it was right away. I moved in, and within a couple of months, people were having some safety and crime concerns, and we got together around a neighbor's backyard picnic table and just began needing to do stuff about it.
Moving off of the last question, you said there were crime rates and such in your neighborhood. Was there any particular issues that caused you to move into these organizational roles, or did you just sort of slip into them as you lived there?
So actually, I had to not slip in initially, although I had to be a catalyst. I was in a strange position because I was the executive director of a citywide neighborhood organizing entity, and I felt it would be unjust and not right if I actually led my own neighborhood, because I would be interfacing with myself. So I helped convene the conversation, but then other people took leadership initially. And then maybe 3 or 4 years later, when I had left that role, I came back in and took on a specific leader role.
I fell into leadership. I show up because I like the people and I like my neighborhood and I want to see good things happen there, and I have what we call volunteeritis. If you ask me to do something and it's in my capacity, I will probably say yes and help you with that. And I showed up to a meeting one day and Jenny here said, I'm done in December. If no one else takes over, no one else takes over. And so I said, okay, I'll help.
No problem with that. When looking at the other members of your community, are you happy with current participation rates in projects, or would you like to see more from other people?
I think we'd always like to see more, but maybe that's not to say that I'm not happy with where we are. I mean, we have some really amazing volunteers, and they're consistent, and they've been consistent over many, many years. And then we have sort of a cycling of incoming people. And if you live in a community where there's turnover of your neighbors, to some degree that's expected. But I'd always like to have more people volunteering.
And there's lots of ways to volunteer. Some of us do it by going to neighborhood meetings. Others of us might have more time during the day to notice who's moving in new on the street, or who might have a new family member living with them now, or
found a lost dog and put it up on Nextdoor for the neighborhood network to find who the owner is.
Yeah, so there's just loads and loads of ways to get involved. If ideally more people get involved, I would like it to be because there's something they really want to do or help with, not just for the sake of getting volunteer hours in.
Mm-hmm.
Just the volunteering that you brought up, going to these meetings, trying to improve communities, do you think that could help influence people's mindsets or attitudes about the whole idea and make them feel like they can better influence their surroundings?
I think, go ahead.
I think when people see things getting done and they see other people doing things, they realize that there's a capacity for things to get done. And I think that makes some difference. When you see the result of some labor, then you understand that you could help do that too, or something different.
Yeah, and I think it also fundamentally changes the way people feel about the place they live. It's been interesting to hear people say, I'm not home, my schedule doesn't let me do da-da-da, but I love the fact that I live in a place that does this or has that, or where people care about each other. And so clearly it touches them, even if they can't feel like they can contribute right away. It has an impact.
One final question. How much of your work as community organizers involves you with, say, local government on the city level?
Sometimes. There are public hearings that I sometimes go to. I just actually, a couple days ago, was in this building speaking on behalf of the historic preservation issue before a city body. I think I'm probably more civically aware because of this work. I pay attention to things in a slightly different way, but I'm not sure that I have a lot of hours invested. It just is more of a global awareness for me.
As you can see, these citizens have a much more optimistic viewpoint of the situation. Even if only a few community leaders are actively interacting with the government to change public policy, these few still feel that the general citizen body is helping them along with their jobs and trying to influence things on a lesser level. Looking at our data and interviews, it is very clear that there is a schism in public opinion between the general citizen population and these community leaders.
Our survey data shows that the general public does not participate in affecting government policy. But interviewing community leaders shows there is a subgroup of citizens who regularly interacts with the government, and they feel that the general citizen body is active even if the data does not support their claim.
However, we can't just ignore the data that we collected and that others have collected on the issue. Overwhelmingly, the citizen population doesn't interact with the government in a meaningful way and doesn't try to change public policy for the better.
But hopefully, as the people we interviewed believe, the activity of the people who are actually politically active will influence others to become more active in their day-to-day lives. This has been MVSS News signing off.